from Far Rockaway, New York City. He's on guitar. Stevens!
Come on, I mean, that's the stuff we live for.
What's up, Paul from Guitar World, and I'm here with the legendary Steve Stevens.
Oh, I'll pay you for that. Legendary. Wow.
It's amazing. It's really just an honor to have you here, Steve.
It's great to see you, yeah.
And the thing is, I want to say, it's been 20 years since the last time that we actually interviewed here.
Right.
Me and my music editor, Jimmy Brown.
Yeah.
And I think I speak for both of us. We learned so much, just from that one lesson, the fact that, just like Rebel Yell, I think I had asked you that you played both parts simultaneously, which was mind-blowing because most guitarists would play that separately.
Yes, yeah.
And you're actually playing it just like that. But what I was leading into is that you're a lot like Eddie Van Halen in the sense that so many guitarists are just as interested in your rhythm playing as they are with your solos.
Yeah.
Because you came up in that era of gunslinging guitarists, and so you had to make your mark very quickly, and you seem to weave, your style into the fabric of every song. Was your thought process when you basically came out of the gate?
Yeah, I mean, it's really simple. Serve the song.
Mm-hmm.
I was very fortunate in that from the moment that I met Billy, I think we sat, sort of talked about our favorite records, which were everything from The Doors to, even Black Sabbath, and then all of the New York stuff. He had moved to New York from London, so he loved Lou Reed and New York Dolls and a lot of the bands that were happening, Talking Heads, Television, Blondie. And I was in New York at that time. I went to the High School of Performing Arts just around that time and went to the Mercer Arts Center, which is where the Dolls first played. And I wasn't old enough to see the first iteration of Max's Kansas City when it was happening, but saw the tail end of it. So saw a lot of really good shows there. But once we established, kind of, hey, I like this, I like that. Okay, let's put it together. We got down to writing. And I've always been a band guy, and I always identified with the guy behind the singer. I remember when Elvis' 68 comeback special was on, my family went over to my cousin's house because they had the color TV. And the women are like, oh, look at Elvis, he looks great, da, 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 da. And me and my dad are going, who's that guitar player? So maybe the guy behind, fit my personality, the mystique of a Jimmy Page, or the guy who was just part of the band. And I think that the rhythm playing was a part of, great band guys, as amazing as, the Ritchie Blackmore solos were, it's a... Come on, I mean, that's the stuff we live for, I mean, the solos are great, but I've always had a great band with Billy Idol. We've always had killer drummers, and there's just nothing like being on stage and locking in and looking at those guys and shit-eating grin, and you go, oh man, it just sounds great. Solos are great.
Sure.
But kind of Billy was the anti-solo guy, especially punk rock was not about guitar solos. So it was like, if there's going to be a solo, there's got to be a reason for it. The Rebel Yell solo had to be more than just notes. That's why I ended up with the ray gun sounds and everything. And
well, speaking of that, it's interesting because I remember when you first came on the scene and just watching you, and that's how we all got to know you, just through videos, through MTV, right? There wasn't that much stuff. But I remember hearing the solo to Rebel Yell, and at the end of the solo, you just wagged the guitar with the tremolo at the camera.
Right.
And that sound, a lot of us thought, I was like, well, is he doing that with, with the toggle switch on a Les Paul? Or is he, or you hit, in the time when you hit the Floyd Rose so hard, it makes that knock.
The warble.
It has that warble, right. Yeah. And I thought, is that how he's doing it? And then turns out you're using a ray gun.
Yeah. And that
so
was
fascinating.
And that was inspired really by Tommy Bolin on the Billy Cobham record and Quadrant 4. And he did it with an Echoplex, but I brought in the CD and I played it for our producer, and I go, a solo has to be something, has to be a sound that takes your head off. It has to fit the title, Rebel Yell. And at the time I was collecting toy robots and, a lot of the ray guns and stuff. And I happened to be, watching like I Love Lucy or something. I'm laying in bed and I got the guitar, got my little PV Bandit and go with the ray gun. And I hear it coming through the amplifier. I go, oh, wow. And it, got closer to the pickup. So I brought the ray gun into the studio. We added some delay and modulation on at that time I was using a Lexicon PCM 41 or something.
Yep.
But it worked. It was something other than more than just notes.
So everyone was like, yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
They pretty much, it was just, you got to check this out, what I'm going to do here at the end.
It was, this is the days of, I'm in the tracking part behind the glass with the headphones on, and I see everybody, that was the high sign. Hey, all right, we got a winner.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Eyes Without a Face, the fact that riff comes in, and then it's the way you voice it. It's like you have the lower end of it, and then you hear the whole chord as you finish it.
Yes.
It's like you do a lot of that kind of stuff.
I was affected as much as anybody by, 1978, hearing that first Van Halen record. But I guess because I wasn't in LA, I could appreciate it, but never try and emulate it. Whereas I think the other guitar players in LA went, oh my God, I got to compete with that. Leslie West from Mountain was a big influence. But what really served me well was I dropped out of high school and I joined a cover band, and we were playing the Long Island cover band scene where Twisted Sister became famous. So I had to learn all these records. And we do 3 sets a night, 45 minutes, 4 nights a week, and I'm deciphering these parts, everything from Jethro Tull to Led Zeppelin, and we did Yes and Beatles and everything. And I learned about a guitar arranging and how to make the parts, the sum of the parts, greater than the individual instruments. And Jimmy Page was great at that. I applied that theory to certainly in Rebel Yell, because the chord structure. That's what the bass does.
Yep.
Now, playing that on the guitar would have been really boring. So I looked at what the melody was, Billy's melody, and realized that I wanted to keep this top note, that F sharp, in all of my chords, even though the bass was moving.
Right.
While the bass goes to A, and then when it goes to G. So that chord, if you're not percussive in the way that you approach it, it's going to sound like mush.
Yeah.
Right? So break it up and, as opposed to. So you're able to play more diverse chord voicings with this percussive style.
Yeah.
And still have clarity. And also, I learned early on, the cleaner you can get your guitar sound when you record, the better it's going to sound. Led Zeppelin, Jimmy Page's riffs, everybody thinks they're so heavy, and the guitar sounds are really small and clean. That's true of a lot of my favorite guitar players. Steve Howe from Yes is one of my favorites, and I don't play anything like Steve Howe. He plays with no vibrato and are extremely clean, but the way that he orchestrated his guitars and utilized different styles really had a profound effect on me.
Yeah, it's the way you've always arranged all your parts, and just
arranging is key.
These concise little parts, and they always seem to poke out in the songs, which made it so exciting. Like especially for Billy Idol's song, and you guys wrote together, and it's amazing.
And I tell young guitar players, listen to music outside of the genre that you play. I loved Keith Emerson. I loved him since The Nice. And even in Flesh for Fantasy, there's the father loves his son, loves it. That was influenced by Keith Emerson in the Five Bridges suite. There's a part that I always loved, that always tugged on my heartstrings at a certain point, and it's those chords. And
Yeah.
although I didn't understand the theory of it, I loved the fact that Keith was playing these syncopated bass parts with his left hand, and then the chords were changing around it, and I tried to emulate that to a certain extent.
I was going to talk about Flesh for Fantasy. That's actually one of my favorites from you, is just the fact from the minute the song starts, you come in with the riff that just grabs your attention.
Right.
And then you go that funky motif.
Yeah.
But then the chords that you're like flailing on the vibrato with the tremolo.
Well, it was such a solid backing track to begin with. It allowed me the space to create this kind of soundscape guitar with these kind of... So obviously influenced a little bit by Nile Rodgers, who was making great records in New York at the time. A little bit of... And one of the interesting things here is that this next section, the B section, I wanted to keep that as opposed, just make it a little... just keep parts that are a little, interesting. So the Police at the Hotel Diplomat before the second record came out, talk about a three-piece band that filled this sonic stage. And Andy was doing a lot of these kind of really cool...
Very textural, atmospheric stuff.
using things. And I think Flesh was definitely influenced by maybe things
It's funny because as we were talking about just the songs, and then you kind of reference the time. It's almost like that you're like, everyone was sort of hitting on the same like sort of motifs at the time, and that it shows because you have all that dynamics of the loud and soft in the playing.
Exactly.
So it was really great stuff.
Yeah, I think we were all kind of like, we discovered chorus pedals in the 80s and these kind of echo and things like that. And also Idol turned me on to John McGee, who was the guitar player in Susie and the Banshees, who was doing some interesting things. He's actually on the third Generation X record. And I started to listen to... And XTC was a big influence on me.
Wow.
Those guitar parts were, such great songs and great arrangements. And the time was really ripe for a guy who had his roots in the whole punk thing and English and the English sensibilities, because the English frontmen, they're just the best. But to combine it with some guitar histrionics, it would have been horrible for Billy to have a guitar player who was just going to show off. It wouldn't have worked. He needed a musical partner that had his best interest at heart.
Right. I know you talked about working with Michael Jackson. How did Michael find you, or how did that sort of come into play?
I was signed to Warner Brothers Records as a solo artist, and Quincy Jones, Michael's producer, was friends with Ted Templeman, who signed me. He was also the producer of those classic Van Halen records. Yep. Quincy calls Ted. They're working on the follow-up record to Thriller, and says, "Hey, man, we got a rock track. Who do we get?" And Ted threw my name in there. When we recorded the first Billy Idol record, we were over at Westlake when Michael was working on, it must have been Thriller or Off the Wall, maybe. I'm not sure. But they were up the hall. So we all kind of were aware of each other. When I spoke to Quincy, he was aware of what I had done with Billy.
Amazing. Was it intimidating? Because you were, very young back then, and you were just sort of like, wow, these are legends, right?
Well, I wasn't a session guitar player, certainly, and I was used to being in the studio with Keith and Billy and an engineer, and I was thinking, I'm going to go in to this Michael Jackson thing, and there's going to be the monkey and the whole entourage, and and I was thinking, well, how am I going to be able to keep my eye on the prize? And I open up the studio door, and it's Michael and Quincy and the engineer, just the same way that we worked. And they couldn't have been more accommodating, and a lot of laughs and good vibe. And Dirty Diana is such a great song. And it's dark, and that I was thinking, well, I don't really play on pop records, so I was really glad to hear it was kind of like, dark and, ooh, what's he singing about? he's mad at somebody, you know.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So let's talk about a little bit about your gear, just your tone. Was there any point in your career you're like, this is my sound and this is my standout tone, or is that something that's constantly evolving for you?
I was really fortunate that in my cover band, our drummer, Chris, was a total gearhead. He built the PA. We had a quad PA. I mean, this is when bands had like huge PA systems and we'd set it up every night, and we owned our own rehearsal space. We owned our own truck. He was a business guy, and I learned what it was about gear. And I think I showed up with like a crappy little combo. He said, oh man, we got to get you some real gear. And our sound man had not only a high watt stack, but like 3 cabinets with 2 heads. And he let me use that. And I learned early on, this is, before there were that many guys tinkering with amps. When I joined the band that I was in right before Billy Idol, I used to build pedal boards. I actually won a contest with Electro-Harmonics to be a product demonstrator. They used to have a place called the Hall of Science on 48th Street, and the people auditioned, and I won the contest, but they lost my number and eventually ran an ad in the Village Voice looking for me. I had already joined Billy Idol. So I was a gearhead. I was building pedals. So I built one for one guy who gave me this late 60s Marshall. And that amp was in his rehearsal studio and was used by everybody from Johnny Thunders, Cheetah Chrome. All these punk rock bands were playing through this amp and beating the hell out of it. And it sounded great, non-master volume. And then I hooked up with a guy named Henry Yee, who was an electronics wizard. And we came up with this idea to put a nice sounding master volume in the amp. And it was kind of in parallel to hearing Eddie Van Halen and going, yeah, I've discovered the same thing. Those plexis have a thing about them which the JCM 800s just didn't have, especially for recording. And there was nothing, recording, you could turn the amp up on full. Everything on 10, put a couple of mics in front of it, and that's the best guitar sound you're going to get. So currently, I have the second version of my signature amp with Dave Friedman, but it's all based on that amplifier. That
you still have
plexi.
the amp?
Yeah.
Wow.
I still have about 4 plexis that I use to record with. Those are the amps that have been on Billy Idol records, Top Gun, Vince Neil, Atomic Playboys. Those are the amps. And I'm not a guitar collector, but I am an amp collector. And when I met with Dave Friedman, I said, I just want to make that amp have a nice master volume and be roadworthy. And that's basically what
signature amp.
Now we've added a clean channel, and it's a bit more versatile, but it's in my ear, it's still that late 60s Marshall plexi sound.
Wow, that's fantastic. Let's talk quickly about your guitar here, the signature guitar with Ciari guitars.
Right, yeah.
I mean, I loved it the minute you pulled it out of the duffel bag, or I should say the backpack.
It comes in a backpack. The only problem is it keeps folding on. No, look at that. That's a feat of engineering. It's the 8th wonder of the world, that. And Jonathan Spangler at the company approached me a number of years ago, and this was such a great idea. And I think it fits perfectly in being a modern musician, because we're having to, while I'm traveling and I'm on tour, I've got my laptop, I'm recording tracks. People ask me for a guitar solo or something. I'm in the studio with Logic on my computer and my guitar, which fits under the seat of an airplane. And
yeah, it's amazing.
I've been with Bare Knuckle Pickups now for 25 years, company out of the UK. We developed a pickup that sounds really good if it's single coil tap. And then, full on. If you're going to have a travel guitar and you're going to have one guitar that you need to, a working guitar, it needs to be versatile and have different sounds available to it. So I can replicate a Telly pretty well, with this, and some Stratty type. Some of those things. So yeah,
what's cool is that you have the different colors for each pickup selection, right?
That's the reason to buy the guitar.
That's the reason, right? So green for the rhythm,
blue is for both,
and red, right?
Yeah.
That's great. And so dual volume, dual tones.
Yeah, they already had this kind of layout, and I didn't change it. I said, this works. Let's keep it all kind of compact in that one area. So guitars available in 3 different colors. This is the Josie Pink. My wife was with me when we met Jonathan for the first time.
Trapezoid inlays
Yeah, we
as
went
well.
we went with the deluxe inlays. It's got a lacquered neck. Some of their other guitars have a bare neck. And
Yeah, pretty much unfinished
we've
or
got ratio
satin.
tuners on it, which are the Graph Tech tuners, and does everything but, make coffee.
It also has a tuner.
The shadow tuner on the
Yeah,
side
right
there.
on there.
When you unfold it, it's pretty much in tune, but this is fine tunes it. You don't need to carry a tuner with you. I really wanted the guitar to be self-contained,
Yeah.
to be something you could just show up at a gig with and do sessions with or whatever that would cover a vast variety of styles and not have to, carry a bunch of gear with you.
But it's great because you've managed to create a signature guitar that folds, that still, when you open it up, it's like, oh, that's Steve Stevens' guitar.
Yeah, this is their original body style. And I love the fact that it's rock and roll looking, regardless of all the mechanics and the industrial design going on in here. For the average person, you look at it, you go, yeah, it's a rock and roll guitar.
Yeah, that's one thing I loved about their guitars. It looks like a working man's guitar.
That's right,
and
exactly.
And then the fact that you just pull the lever on the back and folds. Like when you came in here, we're like, oh, he didn't. I think he forgot his guitar, and then I remember you have this. So
yeah, and then I had some concerns about the way that the initial folding mechanism worked, and I gave them feedback and the neck stability, and they came back to me and had revised it the way the neck joint is, and I thought, oh, they're going to hate me because I'm going to be honest and I'm going to tell them what's wrong with it. And they came back and they had improved and completely changed it to what it is now, which is an incredible piece of engineering.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And so you're still with Nags as well?
Yeah,
That's your main
absolutely.
Stage guitars?
Yeah. And Peter Wolf over at Nags, he was my artist rep in Europe with Hamer guitars. So we go back. I'm a lifer, My wife and I have been together, 23 years. Billy Idol and I, 43 years, and Peter Wolf and I, worked together since 1983, I think. So
fantastic.
I love those relationships.
Yeah.
And I can be honest, when Peter sent me the first Nags guitar, it wasn't exactly what I wanted. And I said, well, it's a nice guitar, but it's not what I would play. And he said, we'll build you whatever you can think of. And it's been Joe Nags. He's a brilliant guitar maker, and I didn't realize that I was playing a PRS that he had built. And Peter said, that PRS? I go, oh, yeah, that's a good guitar. He goes, yeah, well, Joe built that. And I go, oh, well, I'd love to talk to him.
So any other gear that strikes your fancy or something that you're looking for? Or are you pretty much where you're at?
Well, touring-wise, I'm using the Friedman amps. We have a totally quiet stage, so I'm using speaker IRs at the moment.
Right.
And I think that technology is still developing. Two Notes is one of the companies. We have Steve Stevens speaker pack, which we profiled all of my guitar cabinets over at the Foo Fighters studio on that legendary, Sound City console. And I think they're getting better. I'm 66 years old. I would like to keep my hearing because I make records. It's kind of like I need to hear both speakers.
Yeah.
So I don't play at the volume that I played at when I was a young sprite,
I think you're doing fine.
So yeah, we keep, I use speaker IRs and I'm on in-ears, and there's a lot of guitar players, oh God, I hate in-ears. And first of all, you have to get a great set of in-ears. Invest in really good ones, I use JH Audio, but also, Ultimate are great. Spend the money, get the good in-ears to give you the full frequency, and then try adding, here's a little trick, try adding a little reverb to your guitar on all the time. Not from your rig, but have your sound guy give you a little reverb, and then see if they can give you a little bit audience mics as well, so you're not in a fishbowl, you're not cut off. And that's worked really well for me. But I love the fact that I can go anywhere on stage or anywhere in the audience and still hear myself clearly.
That's amazing.
Whereas for a while, have to have the monitor guy follow me in the wedges. There was always something was going wrong with that. So it's foolproof, and it's the same every night. Consistency is a really important thing as a touring musician.
More than ever. Well,
yeah.
That's fantastic. One last thing, is there any collaborations that you would love to do? Any artists out there that you've been thinking about?
My dream collaborator would be Peter Gabriel because I'm such a fan.
Mm.
I would imagine Peter would want me to play 2 notes. To me, collaborating is experiencing the brilliance of another musician and learning from them. That's what I've always strived to do when I worked with Juno Reactor. Ben Watkins is Juno Reactor, and we did a track called Pistolero. If anybody wants to go listen to something really cool. And I worked with him because I knew nothing about this kind of big beat music that Chemical Brothers and Massive Attack were making. And I had this opportunity to go to London and work with them. And I said, I'm going to learn about this stuff. And I think Jeff Beck was really a great example of that.
Yep.
He worked with a lot of electronic musicians. His influences were so far-reaching, Bulgarian chants and things like that. And that's why I love flamenco, because I know nothing about flamenco. You know, all I know is that I like Paco de Lucia, but there's so many great flamenco guitar players. There's also a Brazilian guitar player named Yamanda Costa, plays a 7-string nylon string guitar. And I love discovering guitar players that are doing something completely different that I know nothing about.
Any ones you want to mention?
What is his name? The Italian guy, Matteo?
Matteo.
Yeah, come on. I mean, he's revolutionary. You know, nobody's done that before. No. And what a beautiful tone, you know, and still sounds rock, you know.
Yep.
He's got all this facility, but it's, I mean, I think every guitar player in the world, you know, agrees. And, you know, I love Joe Bonamassa's playing. I love his tone and his feel and what he's done as an ambassador for the guitar. That's the thing. These guys who like Joe and Slash are great ambassadors for us. You know, they keep the guitar alive because, you know, for quite a number of years, there was no guitar on pop music or anything now. And I really like the new Wet Leg record. I think that's great. There's also a band called Dinosaur Pile Up. Yeah. If people haven't heard that, what great guitar tones. It comes from the song. You got to have a great song to begin with. But the facility that young players have now, you go on YouTube and there's kids that, you know, at 10 years old, they're playing stuff that I certainly can't play. And it's great to be an incredible driver, but you need the right car, and the song is the car.
You need to put that in context. And Eddie Van Halen was the master of making his song the vehicle for his playing, you know? Just
without a doubt.
But just like you, I mean, like I said, you're the one still keeping the guitar alive, and it's just an honor to have you here again.
It's the greatest instrument in the world, and it's still, I wake up, I have my coffee, and I pick up my Martin guitar, and I go, what do you got for me today? You know, and there's always something different, you know, and I still have such joy for the instrument. That never leaves us.
Well, that's fantastic. Steve, thank you again
my pleasure.
For all this. A lot of enlightening stuff and
great.
A lot of insight. Thank you.
Great.
Steve Stevens, ladies and gentlemen. Fantastic.
Cheers.